Hi, Deshupriyo. So a few days back, I created a poll on my YouTube channel regarding which kind of content that you want to see on my channel, and this is the result of that poll. So as you can see, a lot of different people wanted different things. I also put a similar poll like this in my Telegram group, and you can see the poll over here. If you have not joined my Telegram group yet, please go ahead and join it now. We have a lot of interesting discussions over there and also shared lots of PDFs and information regarding examinations. I want to thank all of you for participating in these polls, and I understand now that you want to see more of SEBI Current Affairs and also of RBI Current Affairs. So that is what I am going to focus on this week. So tonight's video is going to be about SEBI Current Affairs. I will be discussing all the current affairs from January 2020, and the video on Saturday is going to cover RBI Current Affairs. Let me tell you that this year you have the best opportunity to crack SEBI exam, because many of the people are not even sure if the exam is going to happen. Many of the people are still uncertain if they want to prepare or not, and because of the coronavirus situation, as we know, a lot of difficulties are being faced by a lot of people. So if you are at your home, if you are safe, and if you can go ahead and study, I would encourage you to just gather your thoughts and just study, because right now do not go for hunting materials. ये जो मटेरियल का भूख होता है ना, मुझे पता है हर साल ऐसे ही होता है कि बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स वो मटेरियल ढूंढते ढूंढते ही उनका टाइम चला जाता है, एंड दे कीप थिंकिंग कि किसका मटेरियल हम खरीदे भाई, अच्छा इसका मटेरियल इतना प्राइस लग गया, ओके ये मटेरियल तो बहुत सस्ता है बट इसमें तो आधे चीज़ कवर ही नहीं होंगे। तो ऐसे करके लोग पूरा डिलिब्रेशन करते करते पूरा पागल हो जाते हैं, एंड एंड में कोई पढ़ाई नहीं होती है। तो इसीलिए मैं आपको यही समझाना चाह रहा हूँ कि just try and study, get some materials, whatever you feel is right, and go ahead and study. आप चाहे किसी का भी मटेरियल खरीद लो, चाहे वो मिस्टर गर्ग हो जाए या फिर मिस्टर जिंदल हो या फिर टाटा अंबानी का भी मटेरियल ले लो ना, फिर भी आपको खुद पढ़ाई करना ही होगा, आपको खुद प्रिपेयर करना पड़ेगा अपना नोट्स. सो यू हैव टू गो अहेड एंड क्रिएट योर ओन नोट्स. सो दैट्स वाई व्हेन पीपल कम टू मी एंड अप्रोच मी फॉर द PDFs, आई जस्ट फील like laughing, because you cannot even create your own notes. You are going to somebody and asking them to give PDFs. So you want everything presented to you in a ready to eat format, but that is not something that can help you to crack these exams. जो भी मुझे थोड़ा बहुत भी सक्सेस मिल गया होगा ना ये सब एग्जाम्स में, मैंने यही रियलाइज किया है कि द डिफरेंस इज द पर्सन हु वांट्स टू सेल्फ स्टडी एंड द पर्सन हु डज नॉट और कैन नॉट सेल्फ स्टडी एंड दे ओनली वांट टू गेट नोट्स. सो all of my friends who have been successful, and many of my friends have been lot more successful than me. सिर्फ मेरी बात ने मैं नहीं बोल रहा हूँ, आई एम ऑल्सो टेकिंग देयर एक्सपीरियंसेस. सो दोज पीपल दे क्रिएटेड देयर ओन नोट्स एंड ओनली देन दे कुड हैव गॉटन ऑल दैट सक्सेस. सो इफ यू डू नॉट बिलीव मी, इट्स फाइन. मैं कौन होता हूँ ना ये सब बातें बोलने के लिए, बट अगर आप मुझे बिलीव नहीं करते हो तो गो ahead and ask your friends who have been successful, your friends who have cracked RBI, who have cracked NABARD, who have cracked SEBI. Go ahead and ask them. You will find out that it is not the type of material, the quality of the material that they referred. It is all dependent on themselves. It depends on you whether you are going to crack these examinations. तो आप ये मटेरियल के पीछे भागना बंद कीजिए और पढ़ाई पे ध्यान दीजिए. Please, that is my earnest request to you, and I hope that this video is going to help you in that very thing. SEBI Grade A aspirants and RBI Grade B aspirants, these two categories of aspirants should go ahead and check this video and all the concepts covered in depth, and other exam aspirants do not need to cover it so much in depth. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and start this video. So my objective with this session is not only to give you all the current affairs. Of course, I'll be giving you all the current affairs and you must be noting it down. So note down all the points that I'm telling you. But as I tell you all of these current affairs, I'm also going to give you the context. So I'm going to tell you about the terms. I'm going to explain certain things. So make sure that you listen to those things very clearly, because it will really help you to prepare for the SEBI Grade A examination. So let's begin. So the first item that we have today, it is G. Babita Raidu. She takes charge as SEBI's new executive director. So as you know that all of these organizations, these regulatory organizations, they have board of directors, and below that they have the executive directors. So G. Babita Raidu, she is now one of the executive directors of SEBI. She will be handling the legal affairs department, enforcement department, and special enforcement cell, which is called the SEC. SEC. So these three things she is going to be handling. And apart from Raidu, SEBI has 8 other executive directors. So a total of 9 executive directors are there at SEBI. And this is also very important that the SEBI board, it has currently 9 people. So who are these people who are constituting the board? So I'll just show you a picture so you can actually see. So as you can see in this picture, there is the chairman. So the chairman is Ajay Tyagi. He is the most important person, the chairman of SEBI. Now we have the whole time members. So there are 4 whole time members of SEBI. So these people are mostly involved in all of the regulations and all of the decisions that SEBI is going to do. And we also have 4 part-time members. Now as you can see here, you can see even NS Vishwanathan is there. So NS Vishwanathan, he is a deputy governor of the RBI. So even he is in the board. And there are also other representatives from the government. So 2 government representatives, and also there is another person who is a lecturer at IIM. So we have a very diverse set of people who are making up this board of directors, and it's very important that you note down the names of all of these individuals. So make sure that you have got those. So that's all with this item. So let's move over to the next one. Number 2, 30 companies filed IPO papers with SEBI over the past 6 months, eyeing a 2020 market revival. Now, why a market revival? So in 2019, the IPO activity was not so good. And so as you can see over here, that IPO activity in 2019 saw the lowest fundraising since 2015, with 16 companies raising around 12,365 crores. So it was the lowest since 2015. So it is not good at all for the economy, and only a very less amount was raised by IPOs. So the 30 companies that have filed the papers, the IPO papers, they were actually expecting a 2020 recovery. Now as we all know that we are going through the coronavirus crisis right now, and that is why the chances of an economic recovery this year seem quite bleak. Although some of these IPOs have performed quite well, but going forward it might not be that well, because as you know that SBI Cards IPO, it recently happened, and everybody had high hopes from SBI Cards, but we did not really see that take off so much. And so the reasons for the poor performance in 2019, what were the reasons back then? So one of the chief reasons was the liquidity crisis. So as we all know, the ILFS issue. So because of the ILFS default, lot of other NBFCs were also affected, and it was a domino effect that actually caused widespread collateral damage in the equity markets. And there was slowdown in the Indian economy as well. As we know that we are facing a very less percentage of growth. So before the coronavirus hit also, we were going very low, and you know that our growth percentages have been staggeringly low in recent years. And also the global macro headwinds such as the US-China trade war. So that is also something that was really impacting the 2019 IPO market, and that is why 2019 they did not perform well. So the big names in Q4 2019, some of the big names you should just note. So the private equity firm Carlyle backed SBI Cards and Payment Technologies Limited. So SBI Cards IPO. So we all know that it is a 9,600 crore SBI Cards IPO, and this Carlyle Group, it is a private equity firm, PE firm, and they have a lot of stake in SBI Cards. So private equity firm Carlyle and SBI both are going to pair their stakes in the SBI Cards IPO. So that is also something that we need to note. And there is also another one, the Mindspace Business Parks REIT. This is also very important. We'll be discussing in this session itself. And there is the UTI AMC with Blackstone backing. So UTI AMC, that's also a very big IPO. So Blackstone Group is very important. Remember this name. It's the world's largest alternative asset manager. And so this is why the 30 companies, they are eyeing a recovery in 2020. Next one. So number 3, SEBI fined Care Ratings Ltd and ICRA Ltd $35,000 each. Now, what are these Care Ratings Limited and ICRA Limited. So ICRA, they initially started as Investment Information and Credit Rating Agency of India Limited, and so this is ICRA and Care. Both of them are credit rating agencies. Now each rating agency was fined $35,000 or rupees 2.5 million. Now what are the charges under which they were booked? So they had overlooked facts while assessing Infrastructure Leasing and Financial Services Limited, IL&FS. So this is a very important charge. Now because the IL&FS crisis had happened, and you know that the credit rating agencies, they should be analyzing all of these companies, and they should be actually telling the regulator and also all the other companies whether these are safe investments or not. However, there were a lot of charges that these credit rating agencies, they did not have appropriate ratings for these firms, and that is why, for example, in IL&FS case, they did not actually put the firm in the D category, in the default category. They were quite late in putting them in the default category, and that is why many of the investors, they were caught unawares and they could not pull out their money in the right time, and this led to the erosion of investor wealth, and that is why they were actually charged. But no malafide intention was found, so there was nothing found that they were in cahoots with IL&FS, so that they had taken any money or anything. Nothing was found of those sorts, and this is why the fine was actually quite limited, quite less. And what happened was, this was seen as very lenient, and the stocks actually had a rally. So both of these stocks, they had a rally in the markets because the market had already priced in the factor that they are going to get a lot of rap on the knuckles. However, it turned out that SEBI did not punish them too much, and that's why their stocks actually went ahead and rallied in the markets. So this was a pretty strange incident. And since IL&FS collapse, what has happened is there has been a lack of trust in the credit rating agencies, and even SEBI is trying to look into these agencies and how to structure them in a proper way, how to give them some more stringent regulations so that they may not miss any of these things going forward. And so after IL&FS, rating agencies have faced criticism for missing a number of defaults. So they had missed the DHFL default as well, the Diwan Housing Finance Corporation Limited. We already talked about this in one of the previous videos, and also the Artico Capital India Limited. So both of these things also they had missed. So just remember that they had been fined this amount. So let's move to the next item. Number 4, SEBI approved Mindspace Business Parks REIT IPO. So as I told you, Mindspace Business Real Estate Investment Trust IPO. So there are two categories of these special trusts, you can say, and two of them, one is REIT and the second one, it is INVIT. So INVIT and REIT. So these are two very important alternate investment funds, you can say. So what happens in both of these things, if I want to explain in a very basic and a very layman terms, so you can think of both of these things as sort of mutual funds. So REIT, you can think as a mutual fund of real estate, and INVIT, you can think that it's a mutual fund of infrastructure. So what happens is that in REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust, they have a lot of investments in the real estate sector. So real estate, what is real estate? It can deal with normal individual properties like houses of you and me, but mostly it deals with the commercial real estate, the CRE, what we call. So commercial real estate are the big car parks and the malls and the different kinds of things which are commercially leased out, so office spaces, etc. So all of those real estate investments, so they pool them together in the REIT, the Real Estate Investment Trust, and they go ahead and sell the investors these type of units. So it's kind of a mutual fund, but maybe for, you can say, for high net worth individuals who can afford to invest in these types of funds. And INVIT is just the same thing, but here they are not dealing with real estate, they are dealing with just infrastructure. So they can go ahead and deal with infrastructure projects like mining projects and flyover projects and any kind of projects, infrastructure projects that the government is going to push. For example, this 102 lakh crore, as you know, the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has announced our infrastructure outlay for the next 5 years. So these InvlTs are going to go ahead and invest in those areas as well. So these are two very important things to note regarding all of the new investment funds. And Mindspace now, so Mindspace Business Parks REIT, they are going to raise 3,700 crore debt and become the country's second REIT to be listed. So they are going to be the second REIT. So which one was the first REIT that got a public listing? So it was Embassy Office Parks, a joint entity between Bangalore based Embassy Group and the Blackstone Group. So these two groups, they joined together and then they listed the Embassy Office Parks REIT. So it's a very important name because it was India's first REIT listing. So first listing. And REIT and InvlTs were first allowed back in 2014. So guidelines were revised in 2016 and 2017. This was all done by SEBI. Now, why are these things actually coming into the Indian market? It's mostly because that advanced economies, they love these kinds of investments. So REIT investments and INVIT investments, the advanced economies, they actually want these types of investments in the emerging markets. So you will be interested to note that in October 2019, the SEBI chairman, he with a delegation had met with US officials, US financial advisors and financial investors in Boston, New York and Washington DC in USA. So REITs and InvlTs were emphasized during that meet. Participants said that it was a $10 billion industry. So it's a more than $10 billion industry in the world, and all these foreign investors, they actually want the REIT and the InvlT investments, and that is why SEBI is trying to push this sector to take off in India so that foreign investors, they can invest in these kinds of things. So it's very important. So let's move to the fifth item. Corporate Affairs Ministry with SEBI wants unlisted firms to furnish financial data periodically like listed ones. So all the unlisted firms now, they are supposed to furnish the financial data periodically. Now remember that this news item, it is just a draft and it is a recommendation. So it has not come into law yet, but we are supposed to know about these recent developments because these can be asked at any point of time. So the Corporate Affairs Ministry, they want to amend the Companies Act, and unlisted firms would need to furnish financial statements every 3 months or every 6 months. So either it will be quarterly every 3 months, or it can go ahead and they can make it a half yearly phenomenon every 6 months. And please note that there are more than 11 lakh unlisted companies that are active in India right now, and the listed companies are required to disclose their financials every 3 months under the SEBI regulations. So right now the listed firms are already doing it, and these regulations will make these things applicable to the unlisted firms as well. So this is just trying to put some corporate governance into the firms that are not listed in the markets. So let's move ahead to the next item. NSE, the National Stock Exchange of India Limited, approached SEBI for a 10,000 crore IPO. So NSE, they have actually formally approached SEBI for an initial public offering of its shares. So this is a very important news, and please note this especially well. So they are aiming to raise about 10,000 crores from the IPO, which would result in the existing promoters selling about 22 to 24% of their stakes. So because the existing promoters, they are going ahead and they are selling their stake, so we call it an OFS IPO. So OFS IPO, what does this mean? This is an offer for sale IPO. So in the offer for sale, what happens is that the existing promoters, they go ahead and sell their shares into the open market when the listing actually occurs. So that's how you can identify an OFS IPO. So this is very important because LIC of India and SBI and very big name companies, they are holding shares in the NSE. So all those shares, they are going to be pairing their stakes. They are going to reduce the stakes. So once approved by SEBI, NSE will approach the merchant bankers and file a new updated document, the draft prospectus, with SEBI. So after the approval, they are going to file the draft prospectus. So this is a very important development that you must note. So let's move ahead to the seventh item. Number 7, SEBI mandates all listed firms to disclose every loan default. Now this is a big deal because for a long time these regulations were pending, and SEBI, they have finally mandated this. So what does this mean actually? That every loan default they have to go ahead and report. So any default of interest or principal on loans taken from financial institutes, including banks, will need to be publicly disclosed if it continues beyond 30 days. So if the default, it actually continues beyond 30 days, then you need to go ahead and you need to notify SEBI that we have defaulted. So even if you are defaulting on the principal or on the interest, it does not matter. If the default is going ahead for more than 30 days, this is very important, more than 30 days. Remember, the NPA classification of RBI, it goes ahead and states 90 days, but SEBI, they are becoming more stringent. So after 30 days, if there is still outstanding, then you have to disclose this within 24 hours of such an event. So after 30 days, within 24 hours of that deadline being short off, you can go ahead and you have to disclose to SEBI that you have defaulted. So what will this do? So people will get to know that this company, such and such company, has defaulted on their loans, and SEBI can go ahead and notify the banks, or it can notify the RBI. So the regulation is going to become very strict. And just note the types of defaults included. So non-repayment of term loans, the non-convertible debentures defaults, dues related to fund-based working capital and non-fund-based working capital. So non-fund-based working capital is the bank guarantee, etc., and standby letter of credit, etc., etc. So all types of funding, that the companies have taken, if they default, they have to go ahead and notify SEBI regarding this. Next thing, number 8, SEBI revamps the framework for portfolio management services, PMS. Now this is a very, very important thing, portfolio management services. Now I'm sure that all of you must have heard about wealth management and all those kinds of things. So wealth managers, what are they doing? They are doing the portfolio management services, so PMS activities. So these you can think of as mutual funds, but it is mutual funds for high net worth individuals. So these types of funds, they have a large quantum, so the ticket size is pretty high, and also they have a lot of customization going on. And the aim of these PMS funds, it is to generate alpha. So they want to generate a lot of returns for the high net worth individuals. So these are not for the normal individuals, but only for the high net worth individuals. Now earlier, the minimum net worth for the portfolio managers, it was 2 crore, but now it has been raised to 5 crore. From now on, the PMS portfolio managers, they will need a minimum net worth of 5 crore rupees, and the existing people who are already operating, they have been given some time frame in which to achieve this. Minimum investment ticket size has also been hiked. So earlier it used to be 25 lakh, now it will be 50 lakh. So your ticket size is also increased a lot. And also PMS providers must now provide direct plans. Now this is a game changer, because these direct plans have come into mutual funds as well. And what happened was, regular mutual funds are there and also direct mutual funds are there. So in direct mutual funds, you do not have to go ahead and offer some payments. So that cut that you give to your distributor, that is not there in the direct plans. So the PMS providers must also now provide the direct plans. So that is also a new important change. So rights issue timeline, now this is also something, it has been reduced from 55 days to 31 days. So there is a lesser amount of time for the rights issue. And SEBI has also allowed trading in rights entitlement. Now this is a very important thing. So rights issues, it actually does what? It is actually offering the shares to the shareholders who are actually existing already. So whenever I am going for a rights issue, I am giving it, it's kind of an option. So the rights holder, the person who is holding the shares, they are actually given the option of getting into this rights issue, buying into this rights issue. But sometimes it might happen that I am the investor, but I do not want to buy into this rights issue. So but I am very interested to give up my right and sell that right. So now SEBI has allowed trading in rights entitlement. This means that I can go ahead and sell my rights to somebody else who wants it. So trading is allowed now. And ASBA payment made mandatory for all the investors. This is a no-brainer, because ASBA, it is application supported by blocked amount. So basically the amount is debited only after the allotment of the shares. So only after the allotment of the units, your account is going to be debited, ASBA. So you've already heard about it in the mutual funds. So let's move ahead into the next item. Number 9, SEBI will set up a panel to suggest norms for social stock exchanges. Now, social stock exchanges, what are they? They have been announced in Budget 2019 by the Finance Minister. So, these will allow raising of funds by social enterprises and voluntary organizations. So, the charity organizations, they can go ahead and raise funds using the social stock exchanges. So, they will get access to debt, equity and mutual fund capital. So, those social enterprises, they can go ahead and tap these markets and get some funding. And the chairman of this panel, very important, it's going to be Ishaat Hussain, the director of SBI Foundation. So remember this name, he's going to be heading the panel. Let's move to the next thing. Number 10, SEBI defers deadline by 2 years for top 500 firms to separate chairman and MD role. This is a big news and I've already covered it in a previous video. So earlier date, it was April 1, 2020. New date is April 1, 2022. So by 2 years they have been given an extension. So this is announced right now because our economy is going through a very rough patch. So the compliance cost needs to be reduced, because right now, as you know, that we are going through the coronavirus scare and also so many economic impacts. So right now is not the time to clamp down, because we need a recovery in business. So number 11, the amount invested by mutual funds in REITs and InvlTs in 2019 is 12,000 crore. So a lot amount has been pooled into the REITs and the InvlTs, and I already explained to you the REITs and InvlTs. So just remember that the fund managers have infused 670 crores in the REITs, and they have infused another 11,347 crores in the InvlTs. So InvlTs have become a lot more popular, and very important, remember these names, they can be asked in any exam. So publicly listed InvlTs, IRB InvlT Fund and India Grid Trust. So these are the two publicly listed InvlTs. And privately placed InvlTs, this is also quite important: Int InfraVid Trust, India Infrastructure Trust and Oriental Infra Trust. So these three are the privately placed InvlTs, and I already talked to you about the REITs. So remember the Mindspace one and the Embassy Group one. So those are the two publicly listed REITs. So just remember the listing status, private or public, and the InvlTs and the REITs involved. So it's a very important thing that you must note. Let's move to number 12. SEBI is currently considering recalibrating the mutual fund categories. So for a long time, the mutual fund categories have not been recalibrated. So current definitions, it were actually changed in 2017. So 2017, all these things had been notified. So large cap is the top 100 companies by the market capitalization. So market capitalization, you know, it is the price of the market price of one share multiplied by the number of outstanding shares. So the top 100 companies by market capitalization, they comprise the large cap, the mid cap, they are the market capitalization from the 101st to the 150th, and the small cap, they have the M cap below 150. So these are very important definitions. So these are the SEBI guidelines for the company types. So large, mid and small cap, very important. And SEBI had changed these norms. So back in 2017, they told that the large cap fund has to invest a minimum of 80% in the top 100 companies. So the large cap, these are the top 100 companies. So when you have a large cap fund, 80% has to go here, and the remaining 20% you can go ahead and invest into mid caps or small caps, whatever you want, but 80% has to go to large caps. And for the mid and the small caps, so 65% has to go to the mid or the small caps respectively, and the remaining 35% they can go ahead and invest in any of the other funds. So it's very important that you note these percentages, and also note the 5 main types of funds which were classified by SEBI. So we have the equity funds, we have the debt funds, the hybrid funds and the solution oriented funds. This is very important. So these are the retirement funds or the education for the children funds, etc. And there are also other schemes like the index funds and the fund of funds. So these are also some other categories. So remember the categorizations, and SEBI is currently considering recalibrating all of these categories. So consultations are going on. Next thing, government is going to create a single regulator for the pension products, and they are going to consolidate all the pension schemes or products of insurance companies and mutual funds under one umbrella. So we are going to mainly consolidate the SEBI and the IRDA powers with respect to pensions. And right now what happens is IRDA governs the unit linked pension plans and the superannuation funds, and SEBI governs the mutual fund retirement funds, and PFRDA governs NPS. So these are the kinds of things that go on. So this single regulator, it's going to consolidate all of these things so that there is some ease of regulation. And EPFO curiously has been excluded. So it's about over 15 lakh crore of the total assets under management among some schemes of EPS, EPF, etc., which are managed by EPFO. So because the EPFO has been excluded, some critics of the government are coming out and saying that it is a governmental overreach, that the regulators should maintain their power. So there is a lot of discussion going on back and forth because of these changes. So just note this event. Number 14. So SAT upholds SEBI's order levying fine of 2,423 crore on PACL directors. So SAT, it is the Securities Appellate Tribunal. Now first remember that PACL was booked for running an unauthorized CIS, which is a collective investment scheme. So it's kind of a pyramid scheme without SEBI registration between 2013 and 14. So PACL Limited, they had actually been doing this unauthorized business, and they had duped some customers, and SEBI committee headed by Justice RM Lodha had penalized PACL Limited and ordered it to pay back the investors. So the ruling had been given to pay it back, and then the PACL Limited had approached the Securities Appellate Tribunal. Now what is the SAT? It is a quasi-judicial body that takes up appeals pertaining to market regulators SEBI and IRDA. So both SEBI and IRDA disputes, they can go ahead and approach the SAT, and SAT has powers to resolve those things. So SAT is a 3-member tribunal, and very important that if the ruling is contested, the litigant can go ahead and approach the Supreme Court. So after SAT, there is also another path, you can go to the Supreme Court, and right now SAT has ruled in favor of SEBI in this matter. So that's all about this. Let's move to number 15. So SEBI proposes investment advisor fees cap and client segregation for entities providing advisory or distribution services. So there is a proposal of capping the investment advisory fees to 2.5% of the assets under advice, AUA. So the assets under advice are the assets under which are actually being advised by the advisor, the investment advisor, or a flat fee of 75,000 rupees per year. So either 2.5% of AUA or 75,000 per year. So this is the proposed cap, and this is a very stringent thing right now. And they have also proposed client segregation rather than business segregation of entities acting as both advisors and distributors. So if a entity is using its company to both advise the clients and also to distribute the products, so there can be an inherent conflict of interest. In that kind of a situation, they have to segregate the clients. They do not have to segregate the business, just client segregation has been mandated. And fees, importantly, cannot be accepted in cash. They must show traceability, fund traceability. So cross checks can be used, DD can be used, demand draft, or bank transfer can be used, etc, etc. So this is a consultation paper, and final thing has not been published yet, but this is the proposed norm, and we expect that these are the things that are going to be finalized. Let's move to number 16. After SEBI representation, Finance Ministry excludes mutual funds from foreign investor tag. Very, very important. So what the Finance Ministry had done, they wanted to classify the mutual funds which had more than 50% foreign shareholding to be the foreign investors. So if the foreign investor tag had been put, if this categorization had been put, then they would be subject to the FDI sectoral caps. So that would be very, very difficult, and there would be various FEMA rules as well, the Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999 rules. So this would make life a lot complicated for many mutual fund houses. And because what these mutual fund houses do, they pull the money from retail customers, right? They pull the money from people like you and me. So most of the money that they get and then they invest, it's Indian money. So if they were actually treated as foreign investors, then that money would have been classified as a foreign investor money. So that was something that SEBI did not want. fund, because SEBI actually wants us to go for the mutual funds, and that is why they wanted to relax the norms, and they went ahead and they talked with the finance ministry, and now the finance ministry has agreed. So this is a real relief to the fund houses like HDFC Mutual Fund, ICICI Prudential Asset Management Company Limited, and Mirae Asset Mutual Fund, which all have greater than 50% foreign ownership. They do not need to be foreign investors anymore. They can be just normal mutual funds. So that's all with that news. Let's move to number 17 now. So SEBI exonerates Ravi Narain and 8 others in NSE co-location case. This is a very important news, and this co-location case, it was a very important you can say scam of 2019. So in April 2019, SEBI had slapped a 6-month ban on the NSE, National Stock Exchange of India Limited, from accessing capital markets. So it was totally banned from the capital markets till October 2019. So a 6-month ban, can you imagine? So what had happened? NSE, this is a dark fiber issue. So allegedly what happened was that certain stockbrokers were permitted to avail point-to-point dark fiber connectivity from Sampark Infotainment Private Limited, a non-empaneled service provider. So a point-to-point dark fiber connectivity. This actually, what this did, this connectivity provided by this company conferred a latency advantage to a few brokers. So a latency advantage means that their orders were actually booked earlier than the other brokers. So this latency advantage in computers, this is basically a networking term. It means that they had more bandwidth, they had more speed in which they could go ahead and make the trades. So if these brokers had these special point-to-point dark fiber connectivity, they could make the trades earlier than the other brokers. So the other brokers were not getting the equal opportunity. So this is a very serious crime, and this resulted in substantial increase in their turnover during the period from April to August 2015. So this is a very important thing that actually happened in 2019, NSE co-location case. So this is a very intricate case, but I have given you just a small snippet. So in this case, Ravi Narain and 8 others had been questioned by SEBI, because at that point of time Ravi Narain was the MD and the CEO, but now they have been found to be totally clear, so they have been exonerated. So let's move ahead into the next item, number 18. SEBI has issued guidelines for listed REITs and InvlTs on rights issue. So some guidelines that they have issued regarding this, that the issuer must disclose objects of the issue, related party transactions, valuation, financial details, review of the credit rating and grievance redressal mechanism in the placement document. So all of these things must be put in the placement document, and minimum subscription to be received in the rights issue shall be 90% of the issue size through the letter or offer. So 90% minimum must be subscribed, and pricing investment manager on behalf of the REIT and InvlT, in consultation with the lead merchant bankers, will decide the issue price before determining the record date. So the issue price needs to be determined, decided before determining the record date. And SEBI had first notified the REITs and InvlT regulations in 2014. So they are something that are very popular in the advanced economies. We already talked about this a little earlier, that Ajay Tyagi had gone ahead and met those foreign investors, and they showed a lot of interest in the InvlTs and the REITs. So very important, REITs and InvlTs. So whatever news that you find regarding them, you just must just read those very clearly. So let's move to the next thing. Number 19, SEBI has created new framework to check non-compliance of listing rules. So they have given new powers to the stock exchanges. So this is just more of a theory. So just take a read through it. So there have been some important powers that they can slap penalties up to rupees 50,000. Earlier the max amount was 10,000. So fine of 50,000 is there for not obtaining in principle approval of bourses before issuance of securities. 25,000 in case of non-disclosure of dividend distribution policy in annual reports, and if they fail to appoint women directors, or they continue a non-executive director who is greater than 75 years, so that would attract fines of 1,000 to 5,000 per day, and they need to issue notices to the non-compliant listed entities to ensure compliance and pay fine within 15 days. And very important that this is going to come into effect from 2020. So just go ahead and read into these things. It's not very important to remember all of the numbers. Just remember that these new frameworks have been put into place. Let's move to number 20. So SEBI is building technological capability to prevent market manipulation. So this is something that the chairman Ajay Tyagi has mentioned himself. So they are actually trying to get some social media technological capabilities so that they can monitor and they can prevent the market manipulation. So they are going to use AI and big data analytics, and also they are going to do the unstructured data analysis by the AI and ML. So artificial intelligence and machine learning. Now unstructured data analysis, this is something that the economic survey also talks about. Those of you who have seen the video that I made on the economic survey, you have seen that the PSBN that the economic survey talks about, they are also going to use these unstructured data and the AI ML technologies. So note this very importantly. And the social media tracking is going to find insider trading cases, and SEBI is going to emulate the IT ministry, the income tax ministry's Project Insight. So the Project Insight, what it used to do, it used AI and analytics to generate a 360-degree profile of taxpayers to find those under-reporting incomes. So technology can be used so that we can find people who are doing insider trades and who are doing some other kinds of crimes. And recently you can see that SEBI actually tries to investigate all of these things. Even a very noted investor of India, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, was recently pulled up for insider trading allegations. And those of you who are interested, you can Google that, you can read about the case. So number 21, SEBI invites applications for SEBI chairman's position. So earlier this Ajay Tyagi's term was to end on March 31st, but now he has got 6 months extension. Of course, the coronavirus is going on and we need continuity right now. We cannot go for a new chairman at this point of time. So remember that the person who will be appointed, it will be on the recommendation of the Financial Sector Regulatory Appointments Committee, the FSRAC, a very important body. So it is headed by the Cabinet Secretary. Who is the Cabinet Secretary right now? It is none other than Rajiv Gauba. So he was also in the news recently because there was a talk of extension of the shutdown, the coronavirus shutdown, beyond 21 days, and Rajiv Gauba came out and told that there are no such plans by the government at this point of time. So the new chairman, he will have a tenure of 5 years. So that is also something that you must note. Let's move to number 22. So SEBI panel proposes sweeping changes to related party transactions. So RPTs, this is a very important thing, RPT. So related party transactions, there was a group, a working group formed under Ramesh Srinivasan, who is the MD and CEO of Kotak Mahindra Capital Company, who has proposed these changes to review the RPTs. So first remember that a related party, the definition, it is any person or entity belonging to the promoter or promoter group of the listed entity, or anyone holding greater than or equal to 20% in listed entity. So it's very important that you note the related party. So RPTs are very important right now because a lot of litigations have been going on regarding these related party transactions, and they have said that the Audit Committee of the listed entity must approve all the RPTs. And a very important thing, the materiality threshold will be 5% of the total annual revenues or the total assets or the net worth of the listed entity on a consolidated basis, or rupees 1000 crore, whichever is lower. So what is the materiality threshold? It is basically nothing but the threshold beyond which, if the transaction amount is beyond that threshold, then the shareholders need to approve that transaction. So that transaction threshold, it has been set at this percentage. So remember the percentages and this clause, it's a very important clause. And this materiality threshold, it is as per the Companies Act, and the Companies Act is also something that you need to cover in the SEBI exam. So the net worth criterion, it doesn't apply to negative net worth companies. Of course, negative net worth, it will not apply. And the transactions between listed entity or its subsidiaries and any entity which benefits a related party should be considered as an RP. So what does this mean? This means that if the entity, the listed entity or any one of his subsidiaries went ahead and made a transaction which benefits a related party, it is not going to directly transact, it's going to benefit that related party, then also they should be classified as an RPT. So it's a very stringent rule. So you can see that these are very sweeping changes, and it will actually be very important in the days to come. Let's go to number 23. SEBI signed an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with Kazakhstan-based Astana Financial Services Authority. So they have signed a bilateral MOU for mutual cooperation and technical assistance. So now this Astana, remember that the capital of Kazakhstan was earlier called Astana. Now it is called Nur Sultan. So it's a new name that has been given. And SEBI usually signs these bilateral MOUs with securities regulators of a number of jurisdictions. It is also a signatory, remember this important thing, to the multilateral MOU of International Organization of Securities Commissions, IOSCO, an association of national securities regulatory commissions that regulate world's securities and futures markets. So IOSCO, remember this, remember the full form. Let's move to the final item for tonight. It is number 24. SEBI eases rules for new exchanges to provide incentives under LES. So what is LES? It is the Liquidity Enhancement Scheme. Now this is what kind of a thing? So this scheme, under this scheme, brokers and other market intermediaries are given incentives for a specific time to bring in liquidity and generate investor interest in securities which have limited trading activity. So this is basically an incentive by the new stock exchanges so that they can get those businesses. And earlier the incentive calculations used net profit of these exchanges, but in early years of the business of the exchanges, they may not have enough profits or free reserves from their business operations, so they may not have those enough profits, and that is why SEBI has eased those rules. And right now what they say, that yearly incentive for LES won't exceed 25% of the exchange's audited net worth as on the last day of the previous financial year. So this is the very important clause, 25% of exchange's audited net worth as on the last day of the previous financial year. Also, exchanges must create a reserve specifically to meet its LES incentives and expenses, so such reserves won't be included in calculation of exchange net worth. So very important, these regulations regarding the LES. So we come to the end of our session. I hope that you have enjoyed whatever I have covered, and this is something that you all requested, so I hope that I was able to cover it in a comprehensive manner and you understood all the subtle things that I have explained. Please leave a like if you enjoyed this type of video, and please write down in the comments below if you want to see something else, if you want me to cover some other topics. If you have any questions, feel free to put it down there, because I answered to all of you, and I hope that you have learned something from this video and that it was beneficial to you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.